I'm finally doing my February wrap up. Finally. This was my first month fully on BookTube, and I was like actively reading to have things for my BookTube channel. So this was a really cool and then really exciting wrap up for me to film right now. I continued my pattern of renting books from the library just since there's so many I want to read and I don't want to commit to purchasing them all just quite yet. And I did start reading a few more things from my shelf, which I'm excited about, so we'll go through them. The first book I read this month was A Wicked Thing by Rhiannon Thompson, which I read as an ebook because I saw it was a retelling and it was like really short like wait time. And this book is a retelling of the Sleeping Beauty tale where the princess wakes up and is forced to marry the prince that wakes her up because it's supposed to be true love's kiss, but she's caught up in a lot of political intrigue and choosing her own path for the first time in her life. It's part of a duology. The sequel, Kingdom of Ashes, came out on February 23rd, which I cannot wait to get my hands on, and I plan to do a combined book review. The second book I read was Why Not Me by Mindy Kaling, and she just was making me laugh buckets, oh my goodness, and not like all at once, like the bucket was spread out throughout the entire book. Now I just found out that there's another book she wrote in 2013, which I cannot wait to read either because she just cracks me up. I don't really actually know that much about her. I haven't watched the mini project yet. The Office I've watched sporadically. I haven't watched it full season to season, but she just always has amused me with her isms and the gift sets of her on Tumblr, so I definitely plan to delve more into her world because she just has a very interesting point of view and I enjoy hearing it through her like memoir biography situation. The next book I read in February was Brave New Love, and it's an anthology of 15 different dystopian short stories, so I really liked getting such a wide breadth of that genre. I definitely want to read more anthology sets of like set in different genres or maybe even different authors also, especially like Eudora Whatley, Flannery O'Connor, Ray Bradbury, Kurt Vonnegut. I just want to read all of their short stories. Oh, and Fitzgerald, of course. I did a full review of each story in that, so that should be showing up as a card now, and I'll also link that below as it's an individual review. I think it's vaguely spoilery. I don't think I gave too much away. Sorry if I do. And I did pick up that book because Kira Cass has a short story in it, and I just was like, I gotta read this finally. I'm not a real fan if I don't, you know? Next, I read Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. Starting this, I was committing to a 6-set series and novellas and waiting in between. I definitely see how Sarah J. Maas's writing improves between Throne of Glass to A Court of Thorns and Roses in present time, so I'm excited to see her evolve as a writer throughout this series. I'll talk more about my review process of Throne of Glass in like 2 books. You'll see, just wait. Next, I read The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh, and this is my favorite book I read in February and maybe even 2016 if I'm not being like too presumptuous. This review should also be showing up as a card and also down below in my description. Check that out. I flail around a lot, but I think that's during the spoilery part. The Wrath and the Dawn is a retelling of the 1001 Arabian Nights tale, where the Sultan has been killing off his wife every night, but eventually one wife tells him a story every night, so he keeps her alive because he wants to hear the story, and there's love, and there's action, and there's a little bit of a fantasy element. So definitely if you love romance, you should be reading this yesterday, okay? Like, you should have already read this book. Next, I read Magonia by Maria Devana Headley, and I read this because it had a really pretty cover and I'd heard a lot of hype, and I think it was an Owl Crate box one month, so a lot of people were reading this and it was a really beautiful cover, and I thought Magonia was a metaphor, and it's not a metaphor, and there's about a girl who's sick who travels to this world in Magonia above the clouds, and there's bird people. I did a review of this book as well. I should be showing up as a card or in the description. Both. It'll be both, unless I run out of cards. I only get 5 cards, right? Is that how it works? So included in this review is the story time of why I'm scared of birds. So it's non-spoilery, bird, story time, spoilers, so there's enough in that video to appeal to everyone, hopefully. I read this one as an ebook also. I'll make a video one day about my preferences between physical books, hardcover versus paperback versus softcover, and then ebooks and then audiobooks, but I'll get into that later because it's not relevant now. And then I read Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas, which is the second book in the Throne of Glass series. The way I reviewed this was I reviewed Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight together. This is the continuation of Selena Sardothian's tale and life in Ardalan and assassinary and Chaol and Dorian and all of them. One thing though, if you're watching this and you haven't read the book yet, I would recommend reading The Assassin's Blade in between Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight because that's how they were published. When you don't read books like live time, like as they come out, it gets complicated. So they do make a lot more references to her life in the Assassin's Guild in this book that I wish I'd known more about. So I think I'm going to be reading Assassin's Blade before I get into Heir of Fire, which I've been spoiled on, and we're not going to talk about it, okay? It happens, the book's been out, I know, I'm just frustrated. I really enjoyed this and I feel like it's going to be one of my favorite series. Fantasy, romance are my faves, in case you couldn't tell. Next, I read one of the most anticipated books of 2016. Kind of for me, mostly for like the book community, was The Last Sword by Victoria Aveyard, and I did film an individual review of this book as well. Should be showing this card down in the description. I'm not gonna keep saying that because you know this. I definitely preferred Red Queen because I prefer palace intrigue to woods planning, I guess. We'll see how the rest of this series goes. Now we have to wait a year. A year between books is just too long. My nails are still silver from reading this book. So in February, I was like super duper behind on my Around the Year in 52 Books challenge. Like, it was bad. So at the end of the month, I finally read the book for week 5, which is a book that starts with the same letter as your first name. So I read Lady Susan from the Jane Austen compilation. She has her 6 main novels, and then there's like 3 or 4 short stories that aren't usually as well known. So there's The Watsons, Sanditon, which was adapted by Pemberley Digital, the people that did the Lizzie Bennet Diaries and Emma Approved, which I both approve of both of those web series a ton. Those are fantastic. But I read Lady Susan. So it's an epistolary novel written completely in letters among Lady Susan, her brother-in-law, her brother-brother-in-law, her sister-in-law, her best friend, people like that. Because mostly what the middle class did was they traveled to friends, they went to town, which is London, and they wrote letters to each other. So I'll talk more about it in my Around the Year in 52 Books wrap up weeks 5 through 8. I've read my weeks out of order, so this is actually week 5 of Around the Year in 52 Books, which is a classic with under 200 pages. So I read Of Mice and Men, it's 100 pages. My brother is reading this next for his English class, so that's why there's all these sticky notes, so I know I'll be helping him write that paper, because that's just what I do now. This was an okay book. I'm glad I read it because it's only 100 pages and I got another classic under my belt. And as usual, my March TBR selection will be a blog post, which I'll link below, but there are a couple books that I already know I will definitely be reading in March, so I'll definitely show them to you right now. The books I'm reading right now are Is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me and Other Concerns by Mindy Kaling, and I'm about halfway through. Marking with bookmarks is the best idea I've ever had. And I should have done this when I was like in school and I was in a scholastic mode, but then I'm also reading This Side of Paradise by F. Scott Fitzgerald, which is one of the weeks for Around the Year in 52 Books, and it's a book mentioned in another book, and this book was mentioned in The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and originally I was holding off on all of those books until I could read them all in the order that Charlie reads them, and I'm like, that's insane. You can redo that in your life, because I've already read about half of those so far. These are like 2 very different books to be reading simultaneously, but I'm really enjoying it, and it actually is a lot better for my like reading style. Some other books in the library have are Passenger by Alexandra Bracken, The Swan Thieves by Elizabeth Kostova, and Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. I don't know if I'll be able to catch up with this series before season 2 comes out, but I definitely want to try and get through this. This is really cool because it's the 20th anniversary edition, so there's a map, and then there's also a CD, because Outlander was apparently a musical, so I definitely plan on adding that to my iTunes library. The very next books I'm reading after I finish the Mindy Kaling and the Fitzgerald books are the Darker Shade of Magic series. Oh my goodness, I went to her signing and I met a whole bunch of booktubers and bookstagrammers and people that I can go around the state with for other events. And the day of her signing that we went to in Fort Collins happened to be the day that A Gathering of Shadows debuted on number 15 on the New York Times bestseller, which is so exciting. I had her sign it New York Times bestseller because I'm weird like that. In case you didn't see my vlog about that, this is what I'm reading next and I'm very excited and I'm so obsessed with how these books look, though I'm a bit annoyed that Torrent Books changed their logo in between these 2 books. Not a fan. This has been my February wrap up. I think 10 books is gonna be my like at least my median for what I've reached strive for each month. It seems to be working out quite well. Maybe a bit less just because I also need time to film and also to write my reviews. Writing my reviews takes the longest because I just put it off until like I'm certain I know what I want to say. Let me know down below if you've read any of these books or what your favorite book of February was that you happened to read, whether it was a new release from February or something that you just happened to pick up. I'd love to hear it. Well, my name is Laura. This has been Bookies and Cookies. I post videos Sundays, Wednesdays, sometimes Saturdays, book reviews on Thursdays. I love each and every one of you. And remember, I don't know what to remember. And remember to remember something to put at the end of your outro. Cool. I need to remember all. Neville Longbottom, can I borrow your remember all? In case you were wondering in the Sorcerer's Stone, what he happens to forget when he has it is he forgot his cloak at the Great Hall because he's not wearing a cloak and everyone else is. So that's what he forgot. In case that's been a mind-eating question you've had for all these years. This needs to be recorded. I didn't realize that these things were in my shot. I hate getting rid of this so much. I hate these little beads. There we go. Okay, woohoo! I'll put that back up later. Maybe. Why am I filming them backwards? Like, if you follow me on Goodreads, you know what I've read this month. Like, really though.